starting right now and going for the next hour, is with John Whaley, founder and CEO of UnifyID. He has a doctorate in computer science from Stanford, is the winner of numerous awards, including the Arthur L. Samuel Thesis Award for Best Thesis at Stanford, and has worked at IBM's TJ Watson Research Center and Tokyo Research Lab. He was named one of the top 15 programmers in the USA Computing Olympiad, and basically he's just an all-around badass and an expert in computer security. So welcome, John. Thank you so much for coming today to share your insights with everyone here at InternCon 2020.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to be here, and hello to everyone. It's an honor to be here. So
awesome. So tell us a little bit about UnifyID and what it is that you do.
Yeah. So So at UnifyID, we do authentication. So, we strongly believe you're not a 9-digit number. You're not a piece of plastic with your photo on it. And you're certainly not a password with a capital letter, a number, and a symbol. We do something called implicit authentication. We use unique aspects of human behavior, those little habits and idiosyncrasies that make you unique, and use that to secure your identity. So you don't need to use passwords or, other kind of more cumbersome forms of authentication. There's a lot of deep tech and machine learning that's going on behind the scenes to make it all happen. But like the end result is magical. And so we make an SDK you can link into any existing iOS or Android app. It gives us access to the sensor data. And then when the way that I hold my phone is really different than the way that, other people hold their phones or move around. So, I've been holding my phone the whole time. I'll just show you a quick demo. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with the call center experience, like when you call in somewhere. I'll show you what it is like when you're doing with UnifyID.
Hello, John. Thank you for calling in from a known phone. One question: how can we help you today?
And so the way that worked is, the fact that when I'm holding my phone, like my grip, my motion is actually really unique to me. It turns out that it's tied to my physiology, muscle memory, things like that. And so if we capture around 5 or 10 seconds of motion data when you're kind of holding your phone or walking around, things like that, we can actually use that for authentication. So that's the experience you'll get with UnifyID. This is not just on your phone, also on your computer, with unlocking doors, travel, ATM, automotive, these kind of things. Like if you think about the future of authentication, it's not going to be like I type in a password and then that's like how you know that it's me, or a piece of plastic that has your 10-year-old photo on it. This is like technology is going to reach the point where a lot of these things are just become much more natural, much more seamless, and honestly much more human. I mean, this problem of authentication, it predates technology, right? People have always, any social creature has always needed to know, okay, are you who you say you are? We all have neural networks that have been trained over many millions of years to be able to do this very well, like identify somebody based on their face, their voice, their movements, this little things. So you think about like when you're a kid and like you hear footsteps, and even that's only a tiny little bit of information, but even based on that, it is who it is that's walking, in your house or, upstairs, things like that. So, in very much the same way, it's possible to train neural networks to do much of the same thing. So it's called implicit authentication. And then, has a lot of use cases just across, not just streamlining authentication, also, reducing fraud, things like that. And so, especially now in this time of COVID, and there's a lot of more remote workers and people who are now working from home, as well as like people who need to kind of, transact remotely. Like you can't go into a bank branch anymore. You have to do things from home. There's we've seen a big uptick this year in terms of interest. So
I'm curious how you are tracking people's data and what sort of access they need to give you in order to actually do all of this, and how are you storing and using that data?
Yeah, so privacy is a very important aspect of the other things that we do. So all the data stays local on the local device. We don't want to become a honeypot for everyone's, personal data around things like gates and things like that, because you can tell an amazing amount of information about somebody just based on, for example, the gait, like the way they walk. There's whether anything from like diagnosing medical issues to like, difference in gender and these type of things that you wouldn't really think about, but it's like it does exhibit itself in these type of behavior. So, because of that, we don't want to be, we don't want to become the honeypot. Then all the data stays local on the local device. We do, and then we make an SDK that links into other apps. We then leverage the permissions of the app that we are embedded in, and then to be able to get access to the sensors. And for example, if you have background location permission, then we'll be able to use that. But it's optional. You can like turn it on and off. The only thing we really need is an accelerometer, which is present in basically every smartphone, and it doesn't require any special permissions to access. And so we're able to get a very strong signal just purely from accelerometer. Obviously, the more sensors you have, the stronger signal you can get.
Also using like fingerprint IDs?
We do. So the part that we are focused on is very much the implicit part, the passive. I want to be able to just walk up to my computer, have it unlock, and then like it notice me, or I walk up to my front door and then have it unlock, right? Or I make a phone call and then they already know it's me without having to go and answer. What's my mother's maiden name or my social security number. And so that's a part that we're focused on. We also have something called push auth, which will allow you to kind of then make it a more explicit authentication, like using fingerprint, facial recognition, PIN, passcode, those other type of things. But those are more of the exception rather than the rule. In most cases, there's enough that's unique about you that we can authenticate you seamlessly.
Yeah, because one thing that I was wondering is like, now that people are able to find different ways to hack into things, what if someone was able to create a copy of your fingerprint and use that? Because then your fingerprint is right. So let's say you go on to the next thing, and then it happens again. If you only have 10. Like
no. I mean, that's the thing about fingerprints. They're easy to steal, and they're very, very hard to change. They very painful to change. So the other thing that people don't realize around fingerprints is that if you think about something like an iPhone, or Android device, the sensor is very small. It's not taking your entire finger. It's just taking a little piece of your fingerprint, right? It's called a small sensor fingerprints. And then because of that, then you can actually, it's only matching on a tiny little fraction of your finger. And so there's this thing called master prints. So you can look it up. There's basically what people have done is they've created these master fingerprints that just take all these little aspects of these different people's fingerprints from around the world. And then using that, what they show is that they're able to, on real devices, able to unlock 60% of the time using just this one master set of fingerprints. And so these are like fingerprint, it's pretty convenient. It's better than nothing, obviously. But it's certainly not the end all be all of security. And then as well as think about now more and more people wearing gloves, for Face ID. Again, Apple says your face is your password. Your face is not your password. Your face is your username. That's right. You present to the entire world to say, this is who I am. There's nothing private about your face at all. They claim to have some special camera that's magic to do this. The day that Face ID came out, I saw a live demo where somebody had basically took a front photo, a side photo, printed this little mask, and then put it on this dummy, and then held up the phone and was able to then unlock it. So, these are, again, but all of these things, they point to the fact that people want convenience. I mean, the reason that Touch ID and Face ID is such a thing is that because people want to just be able to look at their phone and have it unlocked. They don't want to even have to type in a PIN or remember passwords or any of those type of things, right? It's just, I mean, certainly there's a there's a big. Sorry, my son is here. Yeah, certainly there's a big. There's a big opportunity there for more seamless forms of authentication. So, yeah.
Also, hello to your son. What's his name?
Yeah, Bryce. Yeah.
Bryce.
Yeah.
Cool. So do you see this as the future of authentication, or like how do you see?
I mean, there's no silver bullets in security or authentication. Like but this was a technology that didn't exist a few years ago, and now it does. And we think this is going to be an important component of authentication in the future, like the ability to, without the user having to do anything different, like just in a purely passive way, to be able to then seamlessly authenticate people. I mean, this is the way it's going to be in the future. Like your car will recognize you, your house will recognize you. I mean, even you walk into a brick and mortar store, they're going to know, like, I go into the bank, it's not going to be, oh, here's my piece of plastic, I'm going to swipe, and then I'm going to type in this 4-digit PIN, and like that's how you know it's me. They're going to come in, they're going to greet you by name. They're going to you're going to have special promotions that are like geared towards you. This is like the direction that things are going. And honestly, it's going to be like, for the longest time, technology, individuals, humanity had to adapt to the limitations of technology, right? Think about passwords and things like that. That's like, it's very much along these lines. And then eventually what happens is technology reaches the point that like it kind of meet people where they are. And then, now, you can just basically be yourself and then interact in a much more natural way, in a much more human way. And so that's the way that these things are going in this direction. And so we just want to be the best in the world at that one thing, just like how to passively authenticate somebody, just based purely on this, this passive information, passive sensor data. That, again, I think that there's no silver bullet in security. Absolutely. There's places where this is applicable. There's places where where it's not very useful. But we think this is going to be an important capability going forward.
It's a little bit scary to me to think about everywhere that I go, I'm being tracked or recognized. My car recognizes me. I walk into, a QFC, and I am constantly being tracked. Every single move that I make, these AIs can recognize my stature, even if I'm wearing a coronavirus mask and trying to, operate on the down low for whatever reason. Like that's a little terrifying. So what do you think about the ethical implications of this for people's privacy?
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the first point is like, is this technology exists? Like whether we're kind of, we do it, or Facebook or Google or Baidu or like whoever, like, this technology already exists. And so then the question is like, well, who do you want to be able to control that? And what should they be able to do with it? I mean, the reason that they founded the company in the first place was they saw a lot of organizations starting to do this with interests, like their interests were not necessarily aligned with the user's best interests. Maybe, you do this to serve them better ads, or do this to, or things that were potentially worse. But I was very convinced that this was the direction that things were going. I mean, it's just very natural progression. Of technology and the way we interact with technology. And so then the question was, okay, do you want to have like 100 different organizations who are all like collecting all of this data about you, like, from via video, via sensors, the things knowing all these things about you, collecting these massive databases of information about you, and then using it for whatever purpose that they want. And then if you believe that this is an important capability that that will be important and differentiated, then that's the natural direction things are going to go. And so when we founded UnifyID, this is why I did this. I did my PhD at Stanford. I taught at Stanford as well. Very big in computer security, privacy. So we knew the right way to do it, like technically the right way, so that. Look, I mean, you saw my son come in. I don't want a situation where somebody can go and kidnap my kids and say, give us this data, because like you never want to be in that situation, right? And then so this is why we architected in the way such that like the data stays on the local device, and then even us, like, unless you have the person's physical device, we can't help you, like we can't tell anything about it. So this is why like we had architected in that way, because if the option is, well, we could build an organization to build this themselves, and then bring this huge treasure trove of like, trove of data and use it for various purposes versus like, oh, well, there's this third-party service that like will give me the answer that I need, but like without exposing any of that, the personal biometric data. That's kind of the direction that we wanted things to go in that direction. This is why that's why I founded the company. And that's why, I still continue to be I'm very adamant around privacy and maintaining user privacy. I mean, ultimately, you as a user should be the one that has control over this. Like, you should be the one that should be able to say who is allowed to use, what data, and also the data should. I mean, this is not the model today, but like the way that this type of data, personal data, should work is. You should continue to own your data. I mean, even if you may let Facebook borrow it for some reason, or other apps and services borrow it for some point in time, but you should be able to then say, I don't want you to use that anymore. And then they should stop using it. I mean, that's the way that things should work. And I think that there's we're seeing kind of more of that as just within society around like a more sensitivity about some of these topics.
So it sounds like you take privacy very seriously, and that's awesome. And so I would be inclined to, use your service. But I also would wonder, is there any chance of you selling your company in the future to some big tech company that could then use that data and, the users that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of companies that are already doing this. I mean, if you've ever gone, despite whatever lip service or anything, I mean, if you see how much Google knows about you, how much Apple knows about you. If you ever gone to Apple and used to go to like the visited places and you can see like, oh my God, like this is like, there's stuff in here that you may not even want like your significant other to know about. Like this stuff is very, very private, not to mention like your cell phone, the Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, et cetera. They have a huge amount of information about you. Look at Google, they read all of your emails. They know all of your chats. They even kind of get your, they have access to your video streams and everything. So there is, look, the attitudes around this have shifted. If you think about Alexa, like think about like Amazon Echo, right? If just think about like maybe 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, if you said you're going to have a microphone in your house so that Amazon can listen to everything you say so that you can, order toilet paper or whatever, ask what the weather is, like people think you're crazy. That's like literally straight out of 1984. But that is, it's one of the top selling products, and it's not just Amazon. I mean, like there's other, like with Siri and with, and OK Google and all of them, like there's value in there. And like, you look at like, what's the actual value? There's like a little bit of convenience. Well, it's like people are willing to trade that off. And so attitudes have certainly been shifting. They will continue to shift around this. Like people, you think about, passwords. Passwords are they're so terrible for so many reasons. But another reason they're terrible is that people are willing to give them out pretty freely. There was they did a study where they offered people like a bar of chocolate, like a chocolate bar, if they would give them your password, and a huge proportion of people actually did it because like in exchange for like, okay, I'll give you this chocolate bar and then, you'll tell me what your password is. And people would do it. And like, because ultimately, this is why a company like ours can exist, is because they, people, they care a lot about, they do care about privacy and security, but they care more about convenience. And so this is why, providing a solution that kind of takes the human element into account, and then knowing that this is the way that people are, I think about my parents. So like I was gonna stream the football game. I went to Stanford. I watched the Stanford Cardinal, right? And it was on like the Fox Sports 1 channel. I didn't have that, but my dad had it on his cable package. So I called him up and I said, "Hey, can you tell me the password for your to log into your cable so I can like watch the game?" And he told me what the password is, and I said, "Dad, that's the same password I set up for you 20 years ago." And he says, yep. And it's a perfectly good password. And I was like, oh my God. Okay. This is like, that's the status quo. I mean, there's like technical people, kind of security savvy people. They're not, that is, we kind of know better. We kind of do better things, but the vast majority of the people don't. And to say that like, well, it's a human's fault. It's a person's fault. It's my dad's fault. It's like my other family member, my friend's fault because like they don't choose good passwords. They don't set up 2FA. I think that you're missing the point if that's what you think. I think that, I mean, the real issue is a failure of technology and imagination. So if they, be able to leverage technology to kind of then allow people to interact in a much more natural way, I think that's the direction that things are going.
So how specific does it need to be, in the sense that, let's say I'm holding my phone over here and now it's in my pocket and now it's over here. Like, what makes that different? Let's say this is a good question we're getting from the chat is like, what if you're drunk and you're walking and like you're a little wobbly? Is it still going to recognize you and let you in? And like, how will it distinguish you from someone else who is walking with your phone in their pocket and they are of a similar size and they're also drunk or something?
Yeah. So, I mean, so this is where like we have a huge amount, we've done a huge amount of research in this area. We've been working basically for the last 4 years on this and like have validated this on like a very large data sets and everything. I mean, it turns out that people are pretty unique. I mean, like you'd think that, oh, this is what's unique about me. Well, I mean, the truth is like, if you think about like when you're walking, for example, this is like the way that you walk has been built up over many, many years of like muscle memory and repetition. And it's also like, it's tied to your physiology. Right. And so like, so we've done all these experiments. Like we did these tests where we, had actors who tried to mimic other people's behavior. Right. People are trained in this and like try to watch somebody, they know that they're using gait, for example, try to mimic somebody's gait exactly. You get identical twins. We've done these tests with identical twins where it's like genetically exactly the same. They bypass facial recognition and all this, but it turns out like at least for the things that we've tested so far, that the techniques we use are resilient against these types of attacks. Now, that's not to say that there's no attack that can replicate this, but that's the truth is there's no such thing as absolute security. Like, I mean, there's many people, especially in like when you're in school and you're kind of studying this from an academic point of view, there's this, oh, well, I'm using 2048-bit encryption. There's nobody like, it'll take somebody like 100 trillion years to crack this, I'm safe. Right. It's like, no, you just like have somebody, beat them with a rubber hose or the hammer or whatever, and then, get them to tell you what the password was. I mean, this is, very much in the same way in security. It's not like you need to like run faster than the tiger. You just need to run faster than the other people. So much of security is like that. The only truly secure system is one that is turned off, it's not even powered on. It's just, in the bottom of a bunker somewhere that like is never, it's never even used. Right. And so that's the only way to really make things completely secure. And even in that case, there are plenty of ways to attack it. And so what you just have to do, like so much around security and risk and fraud is about, it's not so much like I'm gonna make this absolutely secure. If you do the best that you possibly can and you make it costly enough for the attackers that it just becomes very very cost prohibitive to be able to then do this attack. I mean, if you are a nation state and you have access to the supply chain for devices and other things, there is nothing that you can do at that point. I mean, there's like, if somebody has access to the supply chain and then like before you even use the device, it has exploits and holes, and backdoors within it. There's literally nothing that you can do in these cases. Of course, like to be able to affect that type of attack, like you need some really significant resources to be able to, go and affect the supply chain or get into the routers that are switching traffic for, in the core of the internet or these type of things. But, certainly there's capabilities to be able to do that. And so, this is, again, it's like, when you want to design a security system, you want to basically, there's a defense in depth argument there as well. You just basically want to have as many layers as possible. The nice thing about this type of authentication is that it's 100% passive. So because the hardest part about security is not the technology part, it's the human part. If everybody chose 20 character passwords that were totally random and changed them often and use a different one for each service, there wouldn't be very many security concerns at that point. But the truth is people don't because it's just not really practical.
So can you give us some numbers here? Like Truth Seeker in the chat is saying that Face ID has a 1 in a million chance of false positive. Touch ID has 1 in 50,000 chances. What about with your algorithm? So
the technology that we have today, like the state of the technology today, it's about on par with a physical fingerprint. So it's about a 1 in 50,000 false positive rate. Based on that part is based on motion. Now you combine that with other things like, okay, what location it is, the fact this is actually coming from this physical device. We can fingerprint the sensors on this device. They do. So people don't know this, but in every one of these devices, there's a IMU sensor. It's a MEMS sensor that is that's used to measure accelerometer, gyroscope, and it has like tiny little springs inside there, basically, and capacitive plates that's used to measure either different types of rotational energy or acceleration or magnetometer, right? So those things are so precise that there's individual manufacturing defects in every single one of those that were built. And so by sampling the sensor, you can actually tell out of the billions of phones that were created, that were manufactured, which specific device this is, because that's how precise that those sensors are. And so these it's just amazing what type of wealth of information you can get from these type of things. You think about when you're typing something, the way that you hold the phone, the way that the force that you use, the shape of your finger as you are touching different parts of the screen. All these things are really, really unique to you. And so the motion aspect we have is about a 1 in 50,000 false positive rate. You combine it with other factors, it's possible to get higher, and then high enough that you can use this as an authentication mechanism.
I see. And how much time does the device need to be recording your activity in order for you to authenticate? Like, for example, if I had my friend pass me my phone, how long would it take before I could actually get in?
So there's two parts of that. One is how long does it take to build a reliable model of your behavior so that we can reliably say that when new data comes, this is you. And the second one is the detection time. If I hand off my phone, somebody else picks it up, how long does that take? So the training time, it takes about 1 week. And the reason it takes 1 week is because we want to see enough of the variety of your behavior to be able to then build a reliable model for you. We can build a model much more quickly than that, in the order of 5 or 10 minutes, but it's not very robust because okay, it's we want to see you when you're walking fast and we're walking slow and we're wearing different shoes and using different pockets and the kind of your natural thing. The other thing is that some of the factors that we can use are not the non-motion based factors are kind of more, they change more over time. So it's it's a Saturday afternoon. I'm sitting here at my desk at my house. Is that weird for me or is that typical for me? You're able to use these type of signals there as well. And what are the exact RSSI values of the different Wi-Fi access points and Bluetooth devices that are all around me? These type of things. And so those ones, it takes we build a normative model effectively, and then it becomes this binary hypothesis test, basically, where you say here are some new data points. How likely is this from the distribution that's in that is your distribution versus the distribution that is the universe of all other humans, right? And so that's effectively what we do is we build a machine learning model that models your behavior, and then we do this binary hypothesis test to say, hey, given this data, does this look more like you, or does it look more like, it's somebody else? And that's how it works. And so, like, in terms of the detection time, it depends, and it actually depends a lot on what you're doing. Like if somebody picks up my phone and walks away with it, then that one, after around 10 steps or so, then we know that this is not the correct person. And we can say that with a high level of confidence. If you just hand the phone to someone, they're kind of not really touching it, moving it, then in those cases, then it takes longer. But we also we have a very sophisticated like on-body detection as well. Like if you put your phone down, we know that, we can tell the difference between like you're holding your phone even impossibly still versus like it's on a desk somewhere, right? Like you can if you look at the accelerometer and gyroscope, the motion sensor data, like even if you're doing completely still, you see these little like flutters that are like around like 50 hertz, 60 hertz, 70 hertz, like that thing. I mean 50 like 1 hertz or 1.2 hertz, those kind of things. And then it turns out that's like your blood flow as it like goes through either your hand or your thigh. Like the sensors are so incredibly precise that you can pick up just like the flow of blood through your arteries and veins based on these. And so, you can tell the difference between, this is on a person versus like, this is like somewhere else that's stationary. So, yeah.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So is Unify, is it tested in market yet?
Yeah. I mean, I think we had deployed to a total like 34 million devices, and then we're and then the use cases. I mean, it varies. Some is around like adding additional like levels of authentication. So like these cases where you have like those 2FA codes where it's like they text you a code and you type them in. Like those are both annoying and not especially secure. I mean, they're better than nothing, but like they're not especially secure, especially because it's really easy to take over somebody's phone number and like or do a SIM swap or like clone their SIM or get their number ported or get access to their iMessage or whatever. There's a lot of different ways to be able to access to that. Also, it doesn't really help with phishing either. And so so I mean, in some cases, so the opt-in rates for these things are very low. I mean, it's like it varies on the company and the industry. It's typically between 3% and 10%. Using this type of technology, then what we do is that in most of the cases we already know its use. You basically get a free second factor in terms of from the user experience. It's only in the exceptional cases that we need to then ask you additional questions. And so this is that's one of the contexts. The other one's around risk and fraud, just kind of understanding around no change the user experience, but then just cases where they want to know, is this the same person, or does this look like this is somebody else who's trying to sign up for an account, or those type of things. So.
If today to check this out, can they go download an app and get started, or what's that?
Yeah, I mean, so we do have any developers who are listening on, like we have a developer portal. You can go and you can sign up. You can get access to some of our APIs and start to try them out. We have another really cool one called Human Detect, which basically it's a machine learning model that determines like the difference between, does this look like a kind of automated attack, like whether it's like a simulated device or a device that's sitting on a rack somewhere that's like just being operating in an automated way, or does this look like a real human being who's like interacting with a service? And so it's called Human Detect. It's kind of it's a variant of the technology. Instead of like using this to say, hey, is this individual the same individual? This is like, well, okay, here's some data. Does this look like the way humans act, or does this look like the way that not humans act, right? Or attackers act? So that's we have that API available as well. Our primary technology around the gate piece right now, that one is we are launching that publicly very soon. Until now, it's been we've been mostly just working directly with enterprises and customers to integrate that. We're releasing that as a public API this month. So anyone will be able to go and test out and use some of this technology to be able to then build a model, basically build a model based on somebody's motion data from their phone, and then get a real-time score of like, well, how likely is this the correct person who's operating this device? So that's going to be a public API we're releasing this month. So.
Wow, that is incredible. So what does that look like? What programming languages are you primarily writing in? And
so on the machine learning side, we do a lot of Python just because it's, that's kind of the easiest and most de facto standard for doing most of the machine learning work. And we are actually able to run this in production. A lot of the heavy lifting is done we use a variety of machine learning libraries. TensorFlow is the one that we use the most. We also use TensorFlow Lite for, on the phone there as well. And then there's a number of other, it varies. Like we do a lot of signal processing as well. And so much of that code is written in C, and then it is ported to the various platforms. On each of for the SDK, on iOS, then it's mostly Swift code. In Android, it's mostly Java, although we have some Kotlin there as well. And then, and then on the back end, we leverage a lot of AWS services, like in terms of and Kubernetes. We have. All of our backend is built on Kubernetes clusters and containers, and then that's how we can deploy it in a scalable way. So we can, but a lot of the processing actually happens locally on the local device. So we try to minimize the amount of cloud compute that's required.
And any particular reason why you chose AWS as opposed to Azure, or?
No, it was. So when you're dealing as a company, we architected this to be largely cloud agnostic. Like this is why you use Kubernetes, because then you can easily port this to other clouds. We use a few AWS services, but these are not part of. We don't use them as in part of our production code. This is more for when we're training models and kind of doing more things that are offline. These ones, but the intention is we'll be cloud agnostic. When you're on AWS, it's kind of that's the most common one, and so you have the fewest companies that will have an issue with it, if you do. But there are some that prefer you to be on Microsoft Azure, for example, or Google's cloud. But AWS is kind of ubiquitous, and so that's why we deployed there. Now, I think as we get into more deployments, some companies actually want to deploy on their own private cloud. They don't want to kind of use the public cloud version. They want to use private cloud, and that's kind of just an artifact of as you get to larger organizations, they want to have more control. And so this is, but today it's most of our work is on most of our infrastructure is run on AWS.
Gotcha. So pivoting a little bit, I understand that you are looking to hire early talent. Can you talk a little bit about what it is that you're looking for and what that application process would look like?
Yeah. So we've been pretty active both in terms of internships as well as as hiring full-time people out of school as well. In any organization, you want to have a mix. You don't want to have all just junior fresh people, but you also don't want to have all people who are kind of have 10 or 20 years of experience. You want to have a good diversity. And this is very much, this is very much a core value within the company is because ultimately, if you just hire a bunch of clones of the same, people are very similar, then, it's kind of in the early days of a company, it's like you're building the gene pool of the company, right? And you have to think about what kind of DNA do I want to have in that gene pool, right? And much like in biology, if you have a lot of if it's a monoculture and you have a lot of similar DNA and in the gene pool, then what ends up happening is that all traits get accentuated, positive and negative. And then I think you've seen this with some organizations that as they've grown, they've had certain, they kind of grew from a particular culture, and then that gets accentuated as they grow, and then down the line it leads to just problems, right? And so this is something we pay a lot of attention to. Think about, like, we don't want to have people who are all like from the same background. I mean, we and with the same type of experience, right? Because ultimately, that's the reason you even join a company or a company like ours, is that you want to have an organization where you're gonna be able to incorporate a lot of different perspectives and in a constructive way, and because we're trying to build something bigger than any of us individually. Right. And good ideas can come from anywhere, especially because the nature of the stuff that we're doing, I mean, this is like a fundamental rethinking of how identity authentication works. Right. And so there's even, we want people who are taking a fresh look at this. I mean, you want people who had maybe been there and done that, and then have tried things, and they can bring in some of that, some of that like experience about, oh, like when we tried this in the past, this is what happened. But then you want people who have a fresh perspective. They're not tied down by kind of, oh, well, we're doing it this way because this is the way that we've always done it, right? That's actually a negative, for a company like ours. And so, like, because of that, like, the other reason is, like, we view this very much as like in a long-term thing. Like, we as a long-term investment. This is why, like, we have a very active internship program. I think last summer we had like 15 interns, something. This was and this is for a company. I think we're like, the total company size is like 25, and we have like 15 interns. And guess what? Like, a lot of the interns they then come back. They either work with us over like the quarter of the semester, or they come back and work full time, right? And so a lot of these things are then like, it doesn't pay off immediately, but like it pays off down the road. Sometimes 2, 3, 4 years down the road. Because even if they don't, like, if somebody comes and works with us, even if they don't, it ends up not being the right fit, or they kind of don't come to work with us full time. If they had a good experience, they're going to tell other people about it, and then they're going to, oh yeah, I should definitely check this out. Those kind of things. It also helps to kind of build credibility and everything. Look, if we're a tiny startup, we're a 30-person startup. We do not have the resources, to compete in terms of recruiting, with the Googles and the Apples and the Facebooks and the Microsofts and the other ones, and so we have to basically have our edge. I mean, we have to have our edge and our niche that we're going to be going after. Ours is very much very technology focused. You're going to work on very real problems immediately. Very interesting technology. That's undoubtedly, like, at large organizations, like, there are interesting projects that are going on. If you are, as an intern or like as a new grad, the chance you get to work on those teams, like on those projects, and directly contribute to them is very small. Whereas, in our company, then it's like you're going to be expected to work on these things. So, and again, and then we've been focusing on, like, on particular schools, like in terms of like developing relationships with professors there, and et cetera. This is kind of where some of my academic background comes in there as well. I mean, I did my PhD at Stanford. I taught there as well. Still have a lot of connections within that community, and so this is why we're able to then engage with and a number of very good faculty and others, like, just in very good schools, and then have them either come for the summer for like their sabbatical, or like work on joint projects together, or refer good students, those type of things. So we've been doing a lot of work there as well. But I think that it's not this is a situation, like, our company is such that we're not, like, it's not like we're hiring only college grads, but like we do have a mixture, and like we want it to be a diverse group, and so diversity is very much a core value for our company.
So as far as interns goes right now, I see Connie in the chat here has said that the internship is on-site only. However, with the ramifications of the pandemic, how is that changing things? Are you guys still taking interns, and are they coming to work in person, or what will that look like in the next year?
I mean, we've had a mix this year. I mean, like, everything that happened with COVID just kind of threw a wrench in everything. But we did have some people that were here who came on site. I mean, honestly, it's going to be like when you think about the internship experience, what you're going to get out of working at UnifyID, you're going to be missing like a big part of it, like if you are remote. Now, I mean, that being said, I mean, like the whole world is changing now. And so and we are making these adjustments there as well. But there is, just because it's not just about like, okay, here's a project to work on, go write your code, and then like we'll review it and then you're done. I mean, it's just, you're expected to participate at a much deeper and more comprehensive level, like getting into, if you have interest in it, like, in the things on the marketing side, on the website, and lead generation, on sales and entrepreneurship, like presenting to investors and like those type of things. Like that's one of the unique aspects of a company like ours, is that you'll get exposed to many more of those things than you would at kind of a larger organization. It's kind of like the larger the organization, the more narrow your role is within it. And so, I mean, that's part of the value is like the all the peripheral things that you can then learn from just kind of interacting in that environment, which is a little bit more difficult if you're on 100% remote. Now, I mean, that being said, like, there is this like there's this phase shift that has been happening happening this year, and then it's not gonna go back. I mean, it's gonna be this is a permanent shift. Like there will now permanently be more opportunities for remote and people working from home, or working remotely. Absolutely. So this is something that like we can continue to monitor and look at. But I mean, anybody who comes that we want to make sure they're going to have a really good experience. And so the best way we know how to guarantee that is that they are working with us, like, locally and on site.
And do all of these interns, do they need to be like juniors in college and studying computer science, or?
No, I mean, like, look, I mean, this year we had like a high school student who was doing, I mean, it's primarily, I mean, we do focus primarily on like juniors and seniors and grad students, just because, I mean, like a lot of the things that we do, it does require kind of a certain level of knowledge and sophistication, like depending on what area you're in. If it's software engineering, if it's like, machine learning, or, if mobile development, things like that. Like there's certain like base level to be productive that you'll want to have, and then that's most typically aligned with the people who are a little bit further along. But yeah, I mean, we've had freshmen, we've had high school. We have a high school student this year who is just crushing it, like just doing very well there as well. So it's like we do take all time, because again, it was like we don't view this as like, oh, like, this is a short-term thing. This is like some of these people are long-term investments that, like, because one of our best employees, I hired him as a high school student. He was under 18, so I had to like sign some special paperwork that says like I would not force him to make shoes and like work in a sweatshop and stuff. He couldn't work more than 38 hours a week. And then it turned, and then he went off to Yale. He ended up, and then when he graduated, he came to work with us full time, and now he's one of our best employees. So, I mean, again, it was like these things, like you want to look at it in terms of for a long-term investment. So.
Wow, that's really cool. So do you, like in the next 5 years, how do you see this company changing? Are you expanding the field that you're working in, or how large do you plan on growing this company? What are your goals?
Look, I mean, if you think about identity and authentication, it's really the underpinning of just about every other service out there. This is like there is a massive opportunity for whoever solved this problem, right? I think we want to be the ones to solve it, but it's like this problem will get solved, like absolutely. Like it's not going to be five years from now or 10 years from now. Like the way you authenticate is not going to be like, oh, let me remember my password is 1234566. Let me type that in, or, let me send you a text. My phone is right here and my computer is right here, and I need to send you a text message over this insecure SS7 protocol that like has a 6-digit code that I have to like read and then type into my computer. Like it's just silly. I mean, this is not like within 5 to 10 years, the password is not going to go away. I mean, but like password alone will no longer be the predominant method of authentication, right? And so, the question is, what's going to become your identity, right? Is it going to be your Facebook account? I mean, that's what Facebook wants. I mean, Facebook wants your identity to be your Facebook account. That's why you do like Facebook Connect and, log into everything using Facebook. Great for Facebook, maybe not so great for others, because you no longer own that relationship, right? Facebook owns that relationship, right? Or is your identity going to be your phone number? Is it going to be your email address? Is it going to be your Google account? I mean, the truth is that, like, or is it going to be like my device? Like I have this, I have this iPhone 11, and like this is my identity. My identity is my phone, right? Like the truth is, I mean, I'm hoping that none of those will be the answer. I'm hoping the answer is going to be something that's going to be much more like self-sovereign, like, that people have more control over it themselves. Something that's going to be more with an eye towards the user experience and privacy, and like allow people to have the control over that. And honestly, I don't see it being somebody like Google or Apple or Facebook or Microsoft or Amazon. Honestly, any of those, because they're all in competition with each other. Like when you're going to be able to log into Apple using your Google account? I don't know, probably never, right? It's just like they're all trying to own it, but their fundamental business is like their DNA is somewhere else. I mean, like Google's DNA is advertising. Like that's how they made all of their money, all the stuff they do. It's like, they pay lip service to other things, but like they're fundamentally an advertising company. They see everything through an advertising lens. And like rightfully, like, whether they're trying to or not, like that's, all of their best people are working on the most important problems at Google, which are, how do I squeeze more, a few more cents and a few more click-through rates, because that turns into billions of dollars for them, right? This is like their DNA is set, like that's what they are. I mean, Apple is very much around the closed ecosystem. It's some amount of kind of exclusivity and like a walled garden. I have this walled garden experience. I'm not like the chance they're going to kind of allow kind of, interoperability and stuff is low. Amazon, I mean, they do have, they have a placement in, at Whole Foods and Amazon Go stores and like delivery via drone, and like, I heard they're getting into spaceships now and stuff or self-driving cars, other things. They have a pretty ubiquitous like visibility, but like I would be very sad if like our identities become our Amazon accounts. Like this is not the direction they want things to go. I mean, Microsoft owns on the enterprise side, but they have they're very strong on the enterprise side. They've somewhat dropped the ball on the consumer side, and let Google and other ones to then come and take a lot of the opportunities there. And so now, whereas they used to be the big guys, now they're almost the underdog in this whole race. But I mean, honestly, I don't think any of those are going to be the winners. I think the winners are going to be the ones that are independent, that have a kind of a new and innovative enough techniques to be able to do this, doing this kind of like Switzerland. Work with anybody. We're not directly competitive. Those type of things. And it's a long play. This is not like hey, we just made this cool app, and then now we're gonna we're kind of done in by next year. No, this is like we're in this for the long haul. So this is it's going to take like 5 to 10 years, but the opportunity there for whoever solves it is massive.
So we have a few minutes left here. What sort of advice do you have for everyone here who are just about to start their career, or they've got a few years left of college? Like, what are 5 things that they could do right after this talk that will help them with their future?
Yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, like if you look at me, I did my PhD at Stanford, I'm very much a techie person. Like this is maybe a little bit atypical for a CEO. Like many times, say, okay, to be a CEO, like you have to be kind of much more on the business side and these type of things. I mean, for me, I'm like I got some advice early on when I was just like had first become a CEO, was that I put my PhD on my business card, and they said, oh, maybe you don't maybe you don't want to put that on your business card, because then that's then people will think you're kind of too ivory tower. You're too kind of, oh, you're just like impractical professor, or these type of things. I thought about it, I was like, no, I spent like 5 years doing this. I'm not and this is who I am. So I'm going to just do that. I can just fully embrace that. Right. And that is, I think that, life is just too short to be living someone else's life or kind of doing what you think other people think you should do. This is, there's, if you like technology, then you should just be the best that you possibly can be in technology. If you like business, you should be the best in that. Don't try to pretend to be somebody else. If you are, if you are, interested in kind of in entrepreneurship or starting a company or something, this is like early in your career is the best time to if out of your 20s, what you can get is okay, I actually know what I want to do for the rest of my life, then that is the success. Because I mean, the tricky part is not in most cases, when you ask what do you really want to do? Not what your parents say you should do or what society assumes you should do, but what do you really want to do with your life? Most people don't actually have an answer to that question, right? And so, so you can spend the time you're doing internships or other things just to spend the time to discover the answer to that question. It's if you have an interest in some area, go try it. Now's the time to try it. Just go and do it. Don't try to think about oh, I have this perfect career plan that I'm trying to architect and okay, well, I'm going to have this kind of internship, and then I'm going to spend 2 years here, and then I'm going to spend 4 years here, and I'm going to, go and do this. Don't, if you try to do that, then you're operating with a very limited set of information right now. I mean, you may feel like you have all the information, but you really don't. You're operating with a very limited set of information to make these decisions. So if you kind of just maximize learning and maximize trying to kind of figure out what you actually want to do, that would be my recommendation on that side. If you're interested in doing startups, one of the best way to do it is just basically join a startup that is starting to take off and just witness it and see it. That's probably one of the best ways to learn. I mean, that's what my last time around, I was a CTO at my last startup, learned a ton of lessons, and then adopted those, at my current startup, and things are going very well for us now. So yeah, I mean, it's fundamentally it's be authentic and be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. You don't try to be someone else. Don't try to just because your parents say you should go to grad school, it's not going to grad school because your parents say that you should, or getting a JD or PhD or any other, or MD or anything like that because your parents think you should do it, is those are not good reasons to do it. There are good reasons to do it, but that's not one of them. So if you can then spend the time to figure out what you want to do, then what is the and then it'll be a success. And then don't think too much about, oh, I'm going to try to craft my resume in a very particular way, because things change all the time. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming to share all of your advice and information about Unify. Do you have any last words that you want to impart with everyone who is still watching?
Yeah, feel free to, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or drop me an email. It's easy, John at Unify.id. And then looking forward to interacting with more of you in the future. Just mention that you saw me talk at InternCon, and I'll reply. So
I know I will be into the application for next year. And I'm sure lots of other people on this call right now will be as well. So thank you so much. It was great learning about Unify, super great talking to you. And, thanks so much. And thanks for being our kickoff for the engineering track at InternCon 2020.
Great, thank you.
All right.